So it's
'Cause
very unfortunate.
most people do have the dream of becoming rich. Most young people.
Right, and the thing is that everyone knows in business, what do you sell? You sell solutions to problems. So if so many young people wanna get rich, the product is that pitch. It's you sell them the dream.
Yeah.
Why this gets so grifty and so cruel and predatory is because there is no easy solution to this. There is no solution that people are gonna buy, because the real solution people want is no work, no education, no skills required, no money upfront, and people will pay any price for that magic pill, and people are happy to sell that magic pill. And I think those people are very cruel and I think deserve to get exposed for it.
So somebody that's been criticized for MLM type schemes is Andrew Tate,
Yeah,
somebody that I'm very likely to talk with. So for
sure.
people who've been telling me that I'm too afraid to talk to Andrew Tate, first of all, let me just say, I'm not afraid to talk to anyone. It's just that certain people require preparation, and you have to like allocate your life in such a way that you want to prepare properly for them.
Sure.
And so you have to kind of think who you want to prepare for. Because I have other folks that have more power than this particular figure that I'm preparing for. So you have to make sure you allocate your time wisely. But I do think he's a very influential person that raises questions of what it means to be a man in the 21st century. Um, and that's a very important and interesting question because young people look up to philosophers, to influencers about what it means to be a man. They look up to Jordan Peterson. They look up to Andrew Tate. They looked up to others, to other figures. I think it's important to talk about that, to think what does it mean to be a good man in the society? Of course, in the other gender, there's the same question. What does it mean to be a good woman? I think obviously the bigger question is what does it mean to be a good person?
It's
But
Friedman podcast.
I swear to God. Uh, did now interrupt. Okay. So on that said, one aspect of the
Yes.
criticism that Andrews received
Yeah.
is not just on the misogyny, is on the MLM.
Chain, multi-level. Affiliate marketing is sort of like one level. I only make money. So Andrew Tate had this affiliate program where if you sold Hustlers University to somebody else, which sounds like something boomers would put on Facebook in like 2010, like I went to Hustlers University,
Yeah.
School of Hard
By the
Knocks.
way, you were a member of Hustlers University, so
Yeah, I joined. I became a hustler. In large part due to why I'm so successful is because of my Hustler University membership. I'm just kidding. But so it's an affiliate program. So you'd sell like I sell to you this $50 course and I make like $5 and Andrew Tate in perpetuity makes $50 a month off of you.
Mhm.
Okay. What does this course actually sell, right? Because ultimately he's selling the dream. He's selling, hey, the Matrix has enslaved you. He's really gone down this like Neo rabbit hole. So the Matrix has enslaved you. Your life is controlled by these people who want to keep you like kind of weak, you know, lazy, whatever. You need to break out and you need to achieve the new dream, which is sort of like hustling your way to the top. You don't need the antiquated systems of school. You can just pay me $50 a month and I will teach you everything. Okay. So what do you actually get? Well, and why is it a scam? So you actually, I think it's just a scam in terms of like value and like you're selling based on these completely unrealistic things. He's like, let's get rich. Okay. You get a series of Discord rooms. So you know what Discord, most people know what Discord is. It's like a bunch of, chat rooms basically, right?
Mhm. So it's like AOL or is it like
Yeah, 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 right, right.
right,
Well, I'm talking to the guy who quit Emacs, so I don't know. There's Discord servers, and in these, like, there's like 7 different rooms you can go in, or there's several rooms, and each one is like a different field of making money:
yes.
e-commerce, trading, cryptocurrency. Um, I think fulfillment by Amazon, like copywriting. Okay, so I went to all of these. I checked them out. I checked all their money making tools. The first funny thing is that Andrew Tate is nowhere to be found. The supposed successful guy that you like bought into is nowhere to be found. It's these professors that you have now he has hired and said these guys are super qualified. So like looked up some of some of these guys have done. And some of them have launched like scammy crypto coins the cryptocurrency professor was like shilling a bunch of coins that did bad and then like deleted the tweets. I mean, just completely exactly what you'd expect. Behind the paywall, it's nothing of substance. You're not going to learn to get rich by escaping the matrix and going to work for Jeff Bezos.
Mhm.
Fulfillment by Amazon is not escaping the matrix, right? Like that's not the way to hustle to the top. It's literally a field of making money that everyone in the world has access to. If you want to differentiate yourself and make money, the first thing you realize is going into skill sets that literally anyone with an internet account can do is a bad way to do that because
Mhm.
you have to have some differentiating factor to add value. So it's just such a obvious and complete scam because there is no value to this like so-called education. The professors are crap. The advice, they're like hiding some of the bad things they've done. And Andrew Tate's nowhere to be found. Ultimately, that's why everyone joins. What he's done is very interesting because, and I'll give him credit in his marketing, he's been very savvy to like make the reasons you admire him not the thing he's sort of selling, which is weird.
Mhm.
Like he's selling get rich quick, which seems like it relates to his persona, but is actually very orthogonal to it. His persona is like the tell it how it is, like tall, buff, rich guy.
Mhm.
It's like actually his persona that you're buying into, and then he's selling you this thing to the side, which when people get in there and they're not delivered on the product, he still is those things that you first thought he was. So it's like I think it's to some extent he's made a lot of money by making the thing that he makes money on not the thing he gets so much pushback online for and what he's also loved for.
Mhm.
So people will push back for his misogyny, but the real way he's making money is just like basic get rich quick schemes that are super obvious to spot, but everyone's distracted by like, oh, he said some crazy stuff about women or, all these various other scandals he's gotten himself in.
To get more and more and more attention. So
Right.
with the persona, is the Hustler University still operating?
I think they've rebranded it. I'm part of their pitch now. I'm like, they put me on as like, I mean, as like the Matrix is trying to take us out, Lex. And
Yeah.
then it's me saying like, they put me in like saying I'm part of the Matrix. They put me in
Oh, I
saying,
see.
oh, this guy sucks. I joined. It sucks. And so they'll play that and they do like a bass drop and it's like, you know, don't listen to people like this. Da da da. Da. I mean, I'm basically like
Oh, so
in
you've
their
been
little
co-opted by the
promotional.
Matrix to attack.
Yes.
You're an insider threat that infiltrated and
Right.
now is being used by the Matrix to attack him. Well, I mean,
Everyone who criticizes him is part of the Matrix. He won't say who the Matrix is. It's just the shadowy cabal of rich, powerful people. It's just like the easy narrative for people who are disaffected and who feel cheated by the system. You just collectivize that system and you make it the bad guy and you go, look, those guys who have been cheating you, they're the bad guys. They want me shut up. And then now the person that the people who harmed you, they want this guy shut up. You're going to listen to him. So that's like it's like the most basic psychological manipulation that everyone seems to constantly fall for. It's really trivial and stupid, but
can you steel man the case for Hustlers University where it's actually giving young people confidence, teaching them valuable lessons about like actually incentivizing them to do something like fulfillment by Amazon, the basic thing, to try it,
sure.
to learn about it, to fail, or maybe see like to try, to give a catalyst and incentive to try these
As
things.
as much as it pains me, I will try to give a succinct, maybe steel man of it as best as I can, thinking that it's such a grift. But I think what you would say is that some people, in order to make a change in their life, need a someone who they can look up to. And men don't have a lot of like strong role models, like big male presences in their life who can serve as a proper example. So the most charitable interpretation would be Andrew Tate would encourage you to go reach for the stars, I guess. My problem is I have a deep issue with the like lust and greed that centers all these things. It's like this glorification of wealth equals status, wealth equals good person, wealth and Bugatti equals you are meaningful, you matter. And like the dark underlying thing is that none of that matters. Like none it matters that you make a decent living, but past just like that, I think the like lust for more stuff and the idolization of these people that is just like opulence is a net bad. So that's like my steel man has to stop there because
Yeah.
I really disagree with like the values that are pushed by people like that.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's the thing that should be criticized. I shouldn't say it doesn't matter. I think it's just like an amazing meal at a great restaurant. It matters. It's money and Bugattis for many people make life beautiful. Like those are all components. But I think money isn't you can also enjoy a beautiful life on a hike in nature. You can there's a lot of ways to enjoy life. And one of the deepest that's been tested through time is the intimacy, close connection, friendship with other people or with a loved one. They don't talk about like love,
Yeah,
like what it
it's
means to be deeply connected with another person. It's just like get women, get money, all those kinds of things. But
yeah.
that I think I don't want to dismiss that because there's like value in that. There's fun in that. I think the positive, I haven't investigated Hustlers
Mhm.
University, but the positive I see in general is young people don't get much respect from society. Now it's easy to call it the matrix and so on, but there's a kind of dismissal and of them as human beings, as capable of contributing, of doing anything special. And then here's you have young people who are sitting there broke with big dreams. They need the mentors. They need somebody to inspire them. So like I would criticize the flawed nature of the message,
Sure.
but also it's just like you have to realize like there needs to be institutions or people or influencers that help like inspire, right?
The problem is though, is the people who are pitching unrealistic versions of that are getting a lot of attention, whereas, like, there's so many great free courses where you can learn everything and more about fulfillment by Amazon or about copywriting or all these different things that I think like so often the air is just the oxygen is sucked up by all the grifters who promise everything. It's back to what we said about vaporware. This is one of the reasons that um like educational products can so often be co-opted by grifters is vaporware is very hard to distinguish because prompt like the feedback loop on education is not clear. It's not obvious immediately. So I can sell you a book and I can say this is going to change your life if you apply it. If you don't if your life doesn't change, I just say, well, you didn't apply it, right? Like it's there's this weird relationship. It's not clear the value. It's not so easy to like quantify education. So that gets co-opted by people who make
Yeah.
all the promises. They get a ton of attention, a ton of money, and then those people are often left confused and like kind of disillusioned, maybe thinking, well, this didn't work in 1 year, so it's not going to work at all.
Yeah.
And so I think, yeah, there are problems there. There's certainly a need for like male role models. There's certainly a need for somebody kind of to speak to a younger generation. I just think that person shouldn't be maybe Andrew Tate, like
Yeah.
personally.
Yeah. So you have to criticize those particular individuals. I also
And yeah, I think the like the Bugatti aspiration is so stupid. Like it's so
well, let me steal man. So I'm a
yeah, yeah.
person who doesn't care about money, don't like money. The women maybe appreciate the sort of the beauty of
Sure,
the other sex, but like,
sure, sure.
um, yeah, cars in particular is like, really, is this really the manifestation of all the highest accomplishments a human being can have in life? Yes, I can criticize all that, but the to steel man that case is a young person, a dreamer, has
Mhm.
ambition. And I often find that education, throughout my whole life, there's been people who love me, teachers who saw ambition in me and tried to reason with me that my ambition is not justified.
Yes.
Looking at the data,
Mhm.
look, kid, you're not that special.
Yeah,
Look at the data.
right.
You're not, and they want it, dude, they want you to like not dream,
Mhm.
essentially. And then again, I look at the data, which is all the people. I just talked to Hodger Gracie. This Hodger Gracie is a jiu-jitsu person, widely acknowledged as probably the greatest of all time, dominated everybody. But for the longest time, he sucked. and he was surrounded by people that kind of, don't necessarily believe in him, so
Yeah.
he had to believe in himself. So you
Mhm.
have to it's nice to have somebody. I just as older I get and I've seen it, it's so powerful to have somebody who comes to you, an older person, whether it's real or not, that says, "You got this, kid.
Believes in you.
I
Sure.
believe in you."
Sure.
You know?
Yeah, it does. I mean, I think so I think dreaming is actually really important. I'm more protective over people co-opt those dreams for money.
Yes, yes,
And
yes,
like I
absolutely.
do think it matters so much that we encourage people to take risks. It's one of the great things about America is it lionizes like sort of people who have taken risks and won. But I think it's just a weird vapid thing when like the reason you do all of it is for this thing you can get out at
Yes.
the end of the day. When we all know, and you've just heard a million interviews, like nobody ever gets the Bugatti and goes, "This now completely fulfills me." Everyone
Mhm.
knows the beauty and the like fulfillment actually comes from becoming obsessed about what you're doing for its own sake, sort of the journey, the beauty of that thing. Um, and I think money's just this thing we have to deal with to be able to do cool stuff. Like, I acknowledge that, you need money to build the $10 million studio to like, you got to get the cameras, you got to get the lights. And I'm very blessed to be able to have gotten that.
Mhm.
But past a certain point, like, I think that is really the function of money is to just do cool stuff. But ultimately, if you can't fall in love with the process and like the craft itself, you will be left very unhappy at the end of it. And so to start people off on that journey, by pointing to the shiny object and going like, "That's what you should care about," seems to me so backwards. We should learn from the actual people who have done it and said, "That shiny thing did nothing for me." Learn to love the journey, and like, that's the thing we pitch people,
Yeah.
as unsexy as that might be.
Yeah, absolutely. That's well said. And the same applies to like the red pill community that talks about dating and so on. That there is it's not just about the number of hot women you go to bed with. It's also about intimacy and love and all those kinds of things. And so like there's components to a fulfilling life that is important to sort of educate young people about.
Totally.
But at the same time, feeding the dream and saying take big risks.
Sure.
And you, the little you that has no evidence of ever being great, can be great because there's evidence time and time again of people that come from very humble beginnings and doing incredible things that change the world.
Yeah, and there's just a tremendous, like, funny thing where you can't become great without having a willful denial of the statistics. Like, in some ways, you have to take the chance, even if that chance is so improbable. And it's always those people who did take that chance who end up winning. So I agree.
Probably SBF and FTX is the biggest thing you've ever covered, but previously you've called the Save the Kids scam the world's influencer scam, like the biggest in the world influencer scam you've ever seen. Can you describe it?
Sure. So Save the Kids was a charity coin that was launched by a number of extremely popular influencers. I think they had over 50 million followers together, huge names. And they basically said, "Hey guys, invest in this coin. We're going to save the kids. A portion of the proceeds go to charity." And this coin, it's unruggable. So rugging is the term for, remember earlier we talked about SafeMoon, you just grab the pool of funds in the middle and you take them out. Okay. It's unruggable because we have this smart code that is going to prevent people who are quote whales, which is a crypto term for saying you have a large portion of the tokens. It'll prevent those people from selling a large amount of that at one time, right? And so basically, you don't have to worry about trusting us. It just is what it is. Join and we will, you know, change the world, save the kids, whatever. It was really skeezy from the beginning and sketchy because their logo matched the Save the Children logo, which is like an actual charity that, so they basically copied it and said we're saving the kids, like a knockoff brand. And almost immediately the project rugged. They stole the money. And tracing back through, the code was changed at the last second before launch. Like if you looked at their code that they launched as a test versus the code they launched in actuality, they changed only like 2 lines and it was the whale code to basically make the whale code non-existent. Like you can sell as much as you want, as fast as you want. And it turned out that some of the influencers had not only sold that and made money, but also had a pattern of pump and dumping tokens. So we can talk about what that is. Like
Yeah, what's pumping up?
a pump and dump is just where, you have a huge following, you promote your little Lex coin to everybody while holding a big portion of it. And as everyone rushes in to buy it, the price is going to pump and you dump at the same time. So that's where the name comes from, pump and dump. You pump the price, sell all your tokens, make a lot of money. So I traced basically their wallets on the blockchain and found that two of the actors specifically had a long history of doing this. Um, which really proved malicious intent. And why I called it the worst is not, it certainly wasn't the worst in terms of like the amount of people affected. It relatively was like a small pump and dump because it rugged almost immediately. But in terms of the amount of people that were involved in it, in terms of the amount of malicious behavior before it that like sort of proved that this wasn't an accident, the fact that there was like this whale code, it was one of the most cynical attempts to just take the money of the followers you had and just like that's mine now. So that's why I called it that, but that's Save the Kids.
So that was
That was a lot of the phase members, and, it was, I think, Addison Rae. There were a lot of people who seemed like they were kinda taking shrapnel on it. There was, like, this guy Tico who he didn't even sell the tokens, he just, like, held on to it the entire time and lost, like, a few $1,000 or maybe even I forget the exact amount. He lost a lot of money, a decent amount. And so, like, he took a lot of shrapnel with that, but there were also people who were maliciously doing this. So, in that investigation, like, several of the members of FaZe got kicked out. One of them got, like, permanently banned, and then this other guy that I talked about fled the country. Like, he sold all his belongings and, like, fled the country and, hid out in London or wherever he is now. I don't really know where he is. Somewhere in the UK area.
so the
Um,
basic idea there is to try to convert your influence into money.
correct.
Okay.
That's the basic idea behind a lot of influencer crypto promotions.
Well, but right, but that little word influencer means something because there are most crypto scams influencer scams. They're not right. Most kind of
Right.
out of
The most high profile ones, like, just by nature, they tend to be made high profile by the influencer. So sometimes
so
they are, but you're right. A lot of money has been lost and like nobody finds out because there's no one big sort of attached to it. They just steal a lot of money. But influencers are great salespeople because like in order to overcome the resistance of getting you to buy some random coin, there has to be a reason. And so much of the 21st century content creator generation is defined by these strange parasocial relationships where people feel like they know you,
Mhm.
not the character you play, but you, and you have some friendship with them. When in actuality, you don't know the viewers. You have a sense, but you don't actually know all of these people. And so that relationship is extremely powerful in terms of persuasion.
Yeah.
So you can say, I believe in this. And I've watched you for years. And all of a sudden I say, if Lex believes in it, I believe in it. I trust him as a human. And so that differentiates these coins. And all of a sudden the coin blows up, gets really popular.
Yeah.
You made this side deal and you make a ton of money.
I have to say, podcasting in particular is an intimacy. Like I'm a huge fan of podcasts, and I feel like I'm friends with the people I listen to.
Right.
And
And they are.
boy, is that a responsibility.
Yes.
And that's why it really hurts me to announce that I am launching LexCoin. No.
No.
No, man. I this I hate money. I hate this kind of the scheminess of all of this. The use the use of any kind of degree of fame that you have for that kind of stuff. There's
Well, what
something
makes it
just
so, like, frustrating is these people
disgusting
I
about it.
have a general sense of what they were, like, sort of what I'm in the even though I wouldn't describe myself as an influencer, I make content on YouTube. I know that especially since they were taking these huge corporate sponsorships, they were making tons of money. They didn't have need for these scams. I mean, I think it's one thing to scam if you're like broke on the street, and you're playing three-card Monte to
Yes.
like live. And I think it's a whole other ethically cruel thing to do if you're basically trying to upgrade your penthouse to the building next door and like you're already well off and you just kind of want to get even further ahead. I think that's where
Well, this is the
it's
fascinating
so
thing.
natural.
So I've been very fortunate recently to sort of get you know, whatever, a larger platform. And what you find out is like life is amazing. Well, I always thought life is amazing, but it becomes more amazing. Like you meet so many cool people and so on. But what you start getting is you have more opportunities to like, yeah, like scammers will come to you and then try to use you, right?
Mhm.
And I could see for somebody it could be tempting to be like, "Ooh, it'd be nice to make some money."
I wanted to say, like, on this kind of, we're on this topic of opportunities you get, kind of when you get a platform. So one of the reasons kind of I railed a little bit earlier against materialism or whatever, I think to the extent to which you can moderate your own greed, you can play longer term games. And I think so many people end up cutting an otherwise promising career short by just wanting it too fast.
Mhm.
So I think it's like a huge edge, just like discipline is in terms of like achieving what you want. I think like a very moderate, like being comfortable with a moderate existence and finding happiness in that is a huge edge because really your overhead is so much cheaper than the people who need a Ferrari or a super nice house to feel fulfilled. And
Yes.
when your overhead is less, you have the luxury to say no to like sketchy offers, to the different, you have freedom that other people don't have because a lot of times people don't pitch it this way. They pitch a Ferrari as freedom or like a big house is like you've made it. In a lot of ways, those shackle you back to
Mhm.
like, you got to find the cash flow for those things. It's never a free ride.
Yeah, that's really beautifully put. I've always said that I had fuck you money at the very beginning. I was broke for most of my life. The way you have fuck you money is by not needing much to say fuck you.
That's
I
right.
mean, that's the overhead that you're talking about.
That's right.
If you can live simply and be truly happy and be truly free, I think that means you could be free at in any kind of situation. You could make the wise kind of decisions, and in that case, money enables you in certain ways to do more cool stuff, but it doesn't shackle you, like you said.
Correct.
Too many people in the society you would shackle because material possessions kind of like draw you into this race of more and more and more and more. And then you feel the burden of that, bigger houses and all that kind of stuff. And now you have to keep working. Now you have to keep doing this thing. Now you have to make more money. And if it's a YouTube channel and so on, you have to get more. And the same, it's not even just about money. Um, that's why I deliberately don't check views and likes and all that kind of stuff. Is you don't want that dopamine of like of pulling you in. I have to do the thing that gets more and more attention or um more and more like yeah, like money and
Yeah, it's
it,
so
it it
wise.
it
Yeah,
it
agreed.
it's a huge negative hit on your ability to do creative work.
Can I ask you about that? Because
Yeah.
I'm always interested in this. Um, I completely agree. I think it's funny because when you abstract yourself out to the people you admire and respect who inspired you to do the creative work you do, you never think about like the views they were getting or the money they were making or the influence they had. All you ever think about is the work itself.
Mhm.
And it's funny when a lot of people get in this position, your temptation is to focus on that which you can measure, which is like all the stuff you said, like the likes, the view. That's not actually the target or what you got into it for. If you get into it for like, because you're inspired or whatever, your goal is inspiration, it's impact. And like that can't be quantified that same way. So it's interesting. You have to find a way as a creator of any of this stuff to like deliberately detach yourself from the measurable
Mhm.
and focus on this thing, which is kind of abstract. And I was wondering if you have any like ideas for that.
So one, yeah, there's a bunch of ideas. So one is uh, figure out ways where you don't see the number of views on
How do you
things.
do that?
So I wrote a Chrome extension for myself that hides the number of views.
That's really funny. That I no, what's funny is I
For
have.
me, because it's useful for other people's
Right?
content.
Oh my gosh, that's I'm gonna need to borrow this. That was my problem. I
Yeah.
actually have some Chrome extensions for like I don't like going down like recommendation rabbit holes when I'm at work.
Mhm.
I just want to like search for a video, find it. I don't want to see like all the up next because I'll waste time. So I use Chrome extensions for that. But the views is a problem because it's relevant to me as a creator. Like Is this a big video? Is it a
Yeah,
like,
which is why I really hurt when they remove like likes and dislikes because I want
yeah,
to know for
what is the
tutorials and so
real
on. I mean, that's probably really useful for you, the dislikes. Yeah.
yeah. Do you have that? Do you ever considered making that Chrome extension public?
Sure. Yeah, actually, yeah. And there would be a good philosophy behind it, right? Like, don't, if you're a
I really
creator,
like it.
don't,
I love the idea. I've
yeah,
wanted this thing before. I don't know if it
sure.
necessarily
I want to
exists.
make it because I don't think I've made a Chrome extension public. That'd be cool. I would love to see, yeah, I would go to that process of adding it to the, because I love like open sourcing stuff. So yeah, I'll go add it to the Chrome extension, like the store or
Yeah,
whatever.
because I
Yeah, I'll go
totally
through
have.
that. That's
I've
awesome.
hated this for like a long time. YouTube made a change and they just continue to make the analytics front and center, which makes sense from their perspective. They're trying to give people better data on what is successful and what makes something successful. They're trying to train their creators. But in the process, it can lead to some unhealthy habits of thinking views define a video. And so I've long thought, okay, I've learned analytics, I understand retention. Now I sort of want to do like the Zen, like forget it all
Hmm.
now. And you
The
can only do that if it's out of your sight.
depends how many friends you have who are creatives. The other really important thing, and I found this has nothing to do with creatives, but people I respect very much in my life. Some of them people would know that they could be famous. They will come to me and say they will comment on how popular a video was on YouTube. They will sort of compliment
The success.
the success defined by the popularity,
Correct.
even for a podcast where most of the listenership is not on YouTube,
Mhm.
or and Spotify now is getting crazy. They will still compliment the YouTube number. So one of the deliberate things I do is I either, depending if it's a close friend, I'll get offended and made fun of them for that, and to sort of signal to them this is
I
not the
don't
right thing.
want yeah.
I don't want that. And for people more like strangers that compliment that kind of stuff, I show zero interest. I don't receive the compliment well, and I'll focus on the aspects of the compliment that have to do with like what do they find interesting. Like I kind of make them uh, reveal to them that you shouldn't care about the number of views.
It is strange. There's like this weird hypnotism that happens once you get past a certain number. And that number is some approximation. It's like it's always like hard numbers. It's like 100,000, a million, 10,000,000. People just see a number and they just go like, "Wow, that is," and they assign a quality to it that may not like it usually means nothing at all. So I agree. I've never been good at like handling that because you're like, "Thank you."
Yeah.
It's like, "Okay, okay."
That said, I do admire, very different from me, but I admire Mr. Beast, who unapologetically says like the number is all that matters. Like basically the number shows, like the number of views you get shows like how much I don't know, joy you brought to people's lives. Because if they watched the thing, they kept watching the thing, they didn't tune out. That means they loved it. You brought value to their life. You brought enjoyment, and I'm going to bring the maximum amount of enjoyment to the maximum number of people, and I'm going to do the most epic videos and all that kind of stuff. So I admire that when you're so unapologetically into the numbers.
Yeah, he's sort of it's interesting. He's like, gosh, we're getting way too in the weeds. Is this a I don't know. I'm like
Yeah.
constantly self-monitoring about like what topics we are on. But if we can, Mr. Beast is so interesting because he's almost done what have you ever seen Moneyball? It's
Yes.
the story of how someone brought statistics to
To
baseball
baseball. Yeah.
and it revolutionized everything. He's moneyballed YouTube.
Yeah.
He took statistics to YouTube and it changed everything. And everybody now, so many people are playing catch up. I think it would be interesting in a few years to see how he develops. And now that he's like kind of revolutionized like the data side of things, how he then approaches future videos.
Mhm.
Because there's a point at which you've optimized, but optimizing for short-term video performance is not the same as optimizing for long-term viewer happiness.
Yeah.
And how do you do that? Assuming the YouTube algorithm does not perfectly already do it for you, which it doesn't, but they're trying to obviously do that, optimize for long-term happiness. But
And also growing, optimizing for long-term creative growth.
sure.
I think the thing that people don't, I mean, maybe I don't know. I don't actually don't know enough about Jimmy, but like to me, the thing that seems to be special about him isn't the Moneyball aspect. That's really important. It's like taking the data seriously. But to me, is the part of the idea generation, the constant brainstorming and coming up with videos. So it's nice to connect the idea generation with the data, but like how many people when they create on YouTube and other platforms really generate a huge amount of ideas, like constantly brainstorm. At least for me, I don't think I go so many steps ahead in my thinking. I don't like try to come up with all possible conversations. I don't come up with all
Well, I
possible videos I can make.
but you can't, so the one mistake to make is to map Jimmy's philosophy onto every genre, because not every genre
Sure.
fits that model. Your model is not an idea-centric model, it's a people-centric model. And so you like, if you were in the business of creating just mass entertainment for the sake of mass entertainment, you might focus on, okay, the reason going idea focused instead of person focused is such a revolutionary idea in some senses is because ideas can be broader, more broadly appealing than any single human can be.
Mhm.
But you're not going for that. You're going for a podcast interview. And I think for you, the goal should always be how deep can you get with interesting guests and like finding the most interesting guest, which is a different probably
But
set
this
of skills than,
well put, really well put. But I think the right mapping there is finding the most interesting guests.
yeah,
And
right.
I think, I don't do enough work on that. So, for
Yeah,
example, I try to be something I do prioritize is talking to people that nobody's talked to before. So, because it's like I kind of myself as not a good like I know a lot of people that are much better than me. I really admire. I think Joe Rogan is still the goat. He's just an incredible conversationalist. So it's like, all right, who is somebody Joe's not going to talk to? Uh, Not either he's not interested or it's not gonna happen. Like, I wanna talk to that person. I
sure.
wanna reveal the interesting aspect of that person. And I think I should do a Mr. Beast style rigor in searching for interesting people.
And you should probably find people to help you search.
Sure. So he does that. But if we're being honest, he does that, of course, with other folks, but he's the main engine.
Yeah, you need like sort of like a pre-filter, you're the final filter. Cuz your problem is you're only able to think of humans that you've thought of before or been exposed to, and most of the world you've never been exposed to. So you need people to like pre-filter and go, okay, these guys are just interesting humans. Lex has never heard of them. And then you sort of take a batch of like 100 people and you go, who seems the most interesting for me?
Yeah. But by the way, on that topic, we're weeds into weeds. I've almost done. I'm building up. I programmed this guest recommendation thing where I
Oh,
want to
nice.
get suggestions from other people because I really want to find people that nobody knows. This
Yeah.
is the tricky thing.
Yeah.
Like, not you're not famous, but the idea is there's probably fascinating humans out there that
Mhm.
nobody knows.
Correct.
That I wanna find those, and I believe in the crowdsourcing aspect will raise them. And now, of course, the top 100 will be crypto scams. No, but yes. So, like, I have to make sure that these kinds of swarms of humans that recommend, I can filter through, and there's whole kinds of systems for that. But I wanna find the fascinating people out there that nobody's ever heard from. And, from a programmer perspective, I thought surely I could do that by just building the system.
Yeah,
Um
that's how programmers always think. They'll just automate a system to do it.
Well, that's the Jimmy Moneyball, right? Like looking at the data.
Yep.
Uh, uh,
Weeds on weeds.
how do we get to Mr. Beast exactly?
I'm not sure.
Okay, save the kids, influencer.
Influence, that's probably
Yeah.
how.
Let me ask you more on the guru front. You've okay. Let's start with somebody that you've covered that I think you've covered a lot, and I'm really embarrassed to not know much about him. I think this is like old school coffee cellar. You've been through stages,
I've
okay?
been through stages and phases. True.
Uh, a character named Dan Locke.
Yeah.
Uh, who is he? You've exposed him for cult like human and his cult like practices. Who is he? What has he done?
So Dan Locke is sort of, he's gone through a number of iterations, but he was kind of this like sales trainer guy who really made a hard push into what he called high ticket sales. And he was telling people that they could kind of escape the 9 to 5 rat race if they just learn high ticket sales, and they can have the life of their dreams. Basically, it's like, I'll teach you to sell, but I'll teach you to ask Like, not only will I teach you to sell you that pen, but I'll teach you to sell it for $50,000 instead of a dollar, right?
Mhm.
Um, so I talked to a lot of the people who had taken this course because it was pretty expensive. I think it was like $2,500 or $1,000. And mind you, the people who are taking it are like teachers and like people who don't have a lot of money. And then you take the course and immediately you find out, okay, well, there's an upsell. At the end of the course, you're not ready. You need to go from like high ticket closer, which is one of the products, to inner circle or like the level up, right? And all of these courses are structured like this. So they spend a tremendous amount on Google ads to get people in the door, promising the dream. And then once you're in, you're actually not done being like the product. You're actually in this system that tries to upsell you again and again and again and again. And eventually you're paying monthly and you're getting more and more. You're constantly paying for access to Dan Locke's wisdom and like ideas. And fundamentally, this sales system wasn't working for people. I mean, I talked to like, for example, a teacher who put in like $25,000, was in debt at one point and has nothing to show for it. I know. And it was sort of these tactics of pressuring. And then anytime anyone would complain, he would try to silence them. So
Yeah.
I heard from like, funny enough, this lady was a teacher as well. She put together a Facebook group basically saying, I think this guy's a scam. His course didn't work. It's not working for a lot of people because fundamentally the promise of turning someone from a non salesman into a person who's making six figures selling is not an easy thing to do. It's not just a matter of just like take my course. But anyways, it wasn't working. She created a Facebook group about it and he like sues her or and was like legally pressuring her to stop doing that. Um and I realized like somebody has to speak out about this and everyone who is getting silenced. So I was like, I'm going to use my platform to raise awareness to this. And people came out of the woodwork. I mean, saying that this guy defrauded me or he scammed me. And I want to just really quickly take a second, take a beat to explain why get rich quick schemes are different than, let's say, selling a water bottle and saying it's the greatest water bottle ever,
Mhm.
right? Because sometimes people wonder, they go like, well, doesn't like Nissan say their car is going to make you happy and then it doesn't make you happy? Like, why is that different from the kind of advertising of a get rich quick course? I mean, both of them are sort of promising things that aren't true,
Mhm.
but you get something, you take some kind of a training. Isn't it the same thing? No. Here's why. There's this concept in economics called elastic demand and inelastic demand. What it essentially means is that if I raise the value of this water bottle, there's a point at which you're just going to be like, no, it doesn't make any sense, right? But there are areas in our lives where we have desperation around them that can get deeply predatory very quickly because there's no elasticity around their demand. For example, your health. If you get cancer and I have the pill that will solve it, or at least let's say I don't, I have a sugar pill here, but if I can convince you that this pill will solve your cancer or treat your cancer, you will pay any amount of money you have on this earth to get this pill. That it, but obviously that gets really predatory really quick because selling something that isn't real is almost as compelling as selling something that is real, right? So this happens in the get rich quick space too. There's any amount of money you would pay to make a lot more money, right? So these products have inelastic demand. That's why you see what is essentially a few webinars getting sold for $2,500. Courses that literally have identical videos on YouTube, like very similar course curriculums that are selling for such extravagant amounts of money. And I think there can be comparisons made to college because obviously there's similar like questions about benefits. But in this case, there's not even statistics available that even shows the average person gets something out of it.
Yeah.
That's true of like if you go to college, your average income will improve, right? That's the justification there. There's none of that. There's no case studies. There's nothing backing their extravagant claims of you're going to make all this money, you're going to make all this wealth. Instead, they're just, as we said before, they're selling you a dream. So that's why I find all those like types of get rich quick schemes so problematic, and that's why I've railed against them for a significant amount of time.
What have you learned from attacking, exposing some of the things that Dan Locke is doing? What have you learned about human nature and fraudsters and gurus and so on?
That's a great question. So I think one of them is that there's this systemic problem that the phrase "there's a sucker born every minute" is very true. There is no end to the people who will fall for something like this, and the problem is because there's just no end to need and want and and just lack. I mean, it's easy to, on the one hand, criticize people's greed, but a lot of times you have to put yourself in their shoes. If you're at a dead end job, you have nothing going for you, you don't have the money to go to college, you don't want to get in debt, fair play. Where do you go? Right? As you said, there's somebody who's there saying they believe in you, they believe you can make six figures. You know, you're gonna believe in that. And so I really felt like it made a lot more sense to tackle it from the other side, from the side of people that can stop, that can basically be exposed and basically be um, have sort of like a negative put on their work. I mean, they're largely going under the radar. So I kind of felt like, do you want to educate do you wanna, blame it on the victims and say, "You should have known better, you should have done this, you should stop," but there's no end to that, or do you go after the grifters themselves? And so that's what I realized. I realized, that's the tactic that I went with, and it's tough because it's a little, legally risky to do that, but, um, yeah, you just kinda gotta be smart about it, I guess.
So your platform has gotten really big, so there's some responsibility to that.
Weirdly big, yeah.
Yeah. Um, let's say,
'Cause, only a year ago, it was, a lot smaller, and then it's hard to make that adjustment, you know? Because to me, it's the same show I've been doing.
so how do you avoid becoming a guru yourself or your ego growing? There's different trajectories it could take.
Sure.
One of which is you can start seeing everybody as a scammer, and only you can reveal it. And you have a audience of people who love seeing the epic CoffeeZilla grilling,
Sure.
and you can destroy everyone. And that power now is getting to your head. How do you avoid that?
Well, I mean, this is, less optically obvious. I think the main way is, my circle of friends doesn't care about any of that. And my wife doesn't care. The people whose opinion I value has no relation to, a subscriber metric or anything like that. I think that's, tangibly the most important thing to just staying grounded. As far as becoming a guru, I just don't have anything to sell. I mean, I'm not interested in teaching people finance. I'm not interested in teaching people, not interested in selling a course. And I've kind of given myself a hard line on that, which I think has helped me a bit. Is there's a temptation to go, well, I can tell what's a scam, so let me tell you what's not a scam. And a lot of people have offered a lot of money to do that and basically be like, hey, I have such and such legitimate product. Come be like an endorser. And I just don't do that because I think it undermines a lot of what I do. Is if you get if you're taking money in on the side to say this is legit and you're saying this isn't legit, that's a huge conflict of interest. So I think it's about managing conflicts of interest and keeping people around me that are grounded. And also, I think, yeah, my only interest really is just make cool stuff. And I guess I'll do that until people stop watching. So
A question from on that topic from the CoffeeZilla subreddit. Shout out.
shout out.
How does Coffee find the strength to maintain his integrity and resist temptation of being paid a great amount of money to advertise or promote a potential scam?
I think that's goes back to what we've been talking about a lot, which is just on what you prioritize, what you value. I've just never, I guess I grew up kind of lower middle class and I had a great time. I had a great childhood. I had very loving parents. And because of that, I guess intuited at an early age that money doesn't do a whole lot. And I knew a lot of people who were way better off who had miserable childhoods because whether their dad was always gone at work or they just had other family issues that just money can't buy.
Mhm.
And I realized, I guess quickly, um, that money's a very it's a glittery object that isn't what it appears to be. And so to me, I'm I'm having the time of my life making my show. I'm not gonna have the time. You could ruin all that just trying to go for this quick check when it's no, I'm having a great time.
Yeah, it's actually uh, maybe you're probably the same way, but for me, there's a lot of happiness in having integrity, in looking in the mirror and knowing that you're the kind of person that has that. In fact, walking away from money is also fun because
True.
it's like promising
Yeah.
like it's showing. It's easy to like just say you have integrity. It's nice to like, I've discovered several times in my life that I have integrity. it's
When you
it's
get put, yeah, you get put like basically to the test.
Yeah. I've said like I don't know if I publicly said, but to myself I say like you can't buy. There's a lot of things you can't buy with me like for $1 billion, like $1 trillion. But it'd be nice to get tested that way. It'd be cool to see because you never know until
Yeah,
you're in that room.
it's true.
The same with power, given power. I'd like to believe I'm the kind of person that wouldn't abuse power, but you don't know until you're tested. So, anyway, you're in a really tricky position because you're doing incredible. I mean, you are a world class journalist, straight up, and so there is pressure on that of like not having like erring on the side of caution with like having conflicts of interest and stuff like that. It's tough. It's a really tough seat to sit in. Um, it's really tough. It's really tough, but it's unfairly tough, I feel like. But it's good that you're sort of weighing all of those. But that said, go donate to CoffeeZilla. Donate everything. Support him. He's a really, really important human being. Uh, the other guy I think is the first person I discovered that you investigated is Brian Rose of London Real. Can you talk about his story?
Um, Brian Rose, he was sort of this interesting figure because he was like trying to be, to one level or another, the Joe Rogan of London,
Hmm.
which I don't think he did a terribly bad job of, especially initially. He had some really interesting podcasts with some really interesting people. And it's funny enough, I started out as a like, I would watch him. I mean, I don't know if I was like a huge fan, but I was like, I like some of his interviews. He had some really good, like big gets in terms of, great guests. Um, However, when kind of COVID started, he went down this really weird grifting rabbit hole where he did like this interview with David Icke, who's, as you know, like a pretty big COVID conspiracy theorist. Um, and I mean, like actual, like he believes some of the royals are literally lizards.
Hmm.
Um, so he got shut down for that, and he kind of made a big stink, which I think it's fine. Nobody likes to be censored, and I'm not even saying that he should have been censored. But his reaction to that was to like raise a ton of money from his audience, promising this digital freedom platform. And at first, it was like, oh, we want to raise $100,000, and then they raised it like within a day. So he's like, well, we got to raise a lot more money, and so eventually they raised $1 million, and he's trying to raise $250,000 a month to kind of keep putting his viewers' money into this stuff. So I started digging into the platform they were building, and there was nothing free about it. They had censorship guidelines, and there was nothing about a platform at all. There was no underlying infrastructure. He just got some white label live streaming thing. So I criticized him for that. It was just this ridiculous thing. All the donators expected one thing. They thought Brian Rose was going to take on Google and Facebook and like bring free speech back for everybody, and of course he didn't. Um, and then it kind of got worse because he started taking a lot of heat for that, and he really pivoted hard into like the DeFi grift. So he started selling this course about DeFi mastery, and this is a guy who knows nothing about crypto, or very little at the least. So it just got really kind of, he just kind of doubled down on this course model of you're going to be rich if you just follow me, and it was ultimately, you just type in Brian Rose on YouTube, you can see what his audience thought of that, because almost all of them have left him at this point. He's getting like 1,000 views a video, and it wasn't because of me. I mean, it was like people lost taste in just the constant ask for more money, more money, more money. At some point, people get sick of it. And it's like everyone has an understanding that like no one works for free. But when it starts to be ego driven and driven around money, everything's about money, it drives people away.
Well, you're a part of that sort of helping people. It's nice to have a voice.
Yeah, I certainly spoke out. I mean, it wasn't like I was quiet. I was very loud about it at the time. Um, but I mean in the sense that there if you look at someone like Andrew Tate, I made a video about him, even though he's been banned off all the platforms, he gets more views than Brian Rose. And I think it's just like it was a testament to how much Brian Rose was like doing like the grift that people could, even people who were fans and didn't care about what I said, like couldn't look past, just the constant ask for more and more money. People just get burned out.
Is there some aspect that you worry about where, with a large audience, there seems to be a certain aspect of human nature where people like to see others destroyed?
Sure.
Do you worry about hurting people that don't deserve it, or rather, sort of attacking people that are grifter light, but they get like a giant storm of negativity towards them, and therefore sort of overpoweringly cancel them or like
Yeah,
hurt them disproportionately?
sure. I mean, I try to be sensitive to my platform. And as I've grown, I've tried to make sure my video topics have grown with me.
Mhm.
And like, it does reach this tricky point where if you're exposing a grifter with like 50,000 subs who's doing some harm, are you punching down?
Right.
And so far, there's been enough high profile things that I can distract myself with to where this has never been a problem. You don't ever want to be sort of like Sir Lancelot in retirement. Where have you heard this analogy?
No. No.
Okay, so there's this great analogy where it's
Yeah.
like Sir Lancelot's the guy who slays the dragon, right?
Mhm.
He gets a lot of fame and he gets a lot of fortune for saving the dragon, or at least a lot of people love him. But what happens after he slays the first dragon? He's got to go find a bigger dragon. So he goes finds a bigger dragon, and eventually, depending on how many dragons you think are there in the world, maybe he kills all the dragons. And one day, people go see Sir Lancelot, and he's in a field with cows, and he's chopping their heads.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he's sort of put himself in retirement, but he can't even enjoy the fruits because his whole thing is like, I'm killing the dragon. So I try to be cognizant, and I try to always make myself willing to hang up my my suspenders, I guess, hang up my hat. I try to be aware, like, if I significantly improve the problem, I put myself out of business. I want to be okay with that, basically. And just
And
be fine with it. I don't The funny thing is I was more worried about this as like an issue earlier because I thought there was a finite, like, I was like, "Man, I'm gonna solve this faster," especially as it started gaining traction, like, "I'm gonna solve this fast. I got this," you know? Classic naive.
yeah,
We all
and then
think we're so influential.
FTX comes along
Well, yeah,
and
and
all of these.
you just get like, with time, you get humbled because you talk to people. I've talked to like versions of CoffeeZilla that are older, and it's like, "Oh, yeah, they didn't solve it, and they probably were better at
I
doing
just
it than I was."
imagine a smoke-filled room
It's just like,
of of just like retired Batman, and you're this young, bright-eyed,
"Oh, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah."
uh,
And you don't.
fiery spirited investigator.
Yeah, exactly.
What's the process of investigation that you can speak to? What are some interesting things you've learned about what it takes to do great investigations?
Sure. Great investigations reveal something new or bring something to light. So, I think what everyone thinks in terms of investigations is like a lot of like, Googling or like searching through articles. I think, that's the first thing you wanna get away from, and you wanna try to talk to people doing like the non-obvious things and just trying to get perspectives that are beyond just what is available. So a lot of it's just having conversations is so enlightening, both to victims and also obviously trying to get talk to the people themselves. Secondly, there's sometimes some analysis you can generate that's meaningful, like blockchain evidence.
Mhm.
So in the case of SafeMoon, for example, going back to that, I found someone's secret account where they were pump and dumping coins. They were saying things like, "Who sold? I'm so mad at the guy who sold. F the guy who sold." And you look at his account, and he was the guy selling.
Yeah.
And it's like that's great stuff. So digging through the blockchain, kind of, I've gained some skills there, and that's kind of this fun. I guess I would say it's this weird edge I have right now because a lot of people don't know too much about that.
Mhm.
And so I have this weird expertise that works now. I don't think that'll work forever because I think people kind of figure out how to do very similar analyses. But so it's like kind of an interesting edge right now that I have.
So that's like a data-driven investigation, but you also do interviews, right?
Yeah, definitely. And then also recently I've tried to get more response speaking to your point about like as your platform gets bigger, you need more responsibility. I've tried to get much more responsible about like reaching out or somehow giving the subject some way to talk because I think in early on I was such a small channel that A, I if I asked them they wouldn't answer,
Mhm.
but B, I kind of felt like I was launching these videos into the abyss. And when some of my videos had real traction, I was like, okay, hang on a second. Let's double check this. Let's triple check it.
Mm.
Let's try to make sure um, all this stuff is correct. And there's no other side of the story. I'll say this has interesting implications because, for example, I investigated this thing called Genesis. They're a $1 billion crypto lender. And my conclusion was that they were insolvent. That's a huge accusation. So what do you do? Well, I emailed their press team, everybody. I said, hey, I think you're insolvent. I think you're this. I think I laid out all my accusations. And I said, you have till, I think, 2 p.m. the next day to respond.
Mhm.
At 8 a.m., before I made my video, they announced to all their investors that they're freezing withdrawals. They don't have the money. So they front I don't know if they saw the like, I don't know if they actually saw that email. I don't wanna take credit
Yes, yes,
for
yes.
collapsing them or whatever, but my point is, had I not taken that level of kind of care and just said, "Hey, you're a scammer, you're frauds," ironically, could I have done more good by allowing people to withdraw their money early?
Mm.
I made some tweets that people did see that, like, some people got their money out, but my YouTube audience is much larger, and could I have helped more people had I not given them basically the ability to know what I was gonna produce when I produced it?
Boy, your life is difficult because you can potentially hurt the company that doesn't deserve it if you're wrong, or if you're right and you warn the company, you might hurt the. Whew. Well, I'm glad your wife is a supporter and keeps you strong. That's a tough, tough decision. Um, Ultimately, I guess you want to err on the side of the individual people, of the investors and so on. But it's tough. It's always a really, really tricky decision to make.
Very tricky.
Oh boy, that's so interesting. And then the thing I've seen in your interviews, that I don't remember because I think I watched you earlier in your career, you were a little bit harsher. You were like trollier. You're having a little more fun.
Sure.
And when I've seen you recently, you do have the fun, but whenever you interview, you seem respectful. You attack in good faith, which
Yeah.
is really important for an interviewer. So then people can go on and actually try to defend themselves. That's really important signal to send to people because then you're not just about tearing down. You're after like the it's cliche to say, but the truth. Like you're really trying to actually investigate in good faith, which is great. So that signal is out there. So like people like SBF could like he should go on your platform, I think. I mean, now it's like in full, not just like a half-assed conversation on Twitter Spaces, but in full. So
Yeah.
that's great that that signal is out there. But of course, the downside of sort of as you become more famous, people might be scared to sort of go on. But you do put that signal of being respectful out there, which is really really important.
You know, it's interesting. It surprises me. I know it surprises other people because other people have commented, but it consistently surprises me how many people still talk to me. Uh, and maybe it's because and I really do give a good attempt to try to argue in good faith. I try not to just like load up ad hominems or anything like that. I just try to present the evidence and let the audience make up their mind. Um, but it surprises me sometimes that people will just be like, yeah, they want to talk, they want to talk, they want to talk. I think it's very human in a way. And I think it's almost like good. Like one of the things that is always told to everyone who's going to talk to the cops is like, you should never talk to the cops, whatever. Um, which is true. You shouldn't talk to the cops because even if you're innocent, they can use your words, they can twist your words, da, da, da. But there's something that gets lost in that like almost robotic, like, self interest that I think having open conversations even if you've done something wrong, I think there's something really compelling about that. that continues to make people talk in interrogation rooms, in Twitter spaces, wherever you are, regardless of whether you totally shouldn't be talking. And I don't want to downplay that. That's actually really important. I mean, it's like a lot of cases get solved, a lot of investigations go farther because people sort of make the miscalculation to talk. But I think it's like almost important in a way that we have that human bias to like connect in spite of self interest.
Yeah, but also they're judging the integrity and the good faith of the other person. So I think when people consume your content, especially your latest content, they know that you're a good person. I found myself like there's a lot of journalists that reach out to me, and I find myself like not wanting to talk to them because I don't know if the other person on the side is coming in good faith. Even on silly stuff, I'm not
The
a
same way.
I'm not a I don't have anything to hide. Like you don't really have anything to
Mm.
hide, but you don't know what their like spin is.
Can I tell you an
Yeah,
example? I'm dying because I believe so strongly that journalists have done themselves such a disservice. Okay, one of the truest things is that, like, everyone loves journalism in theory, and almost everyone dislikes journalists as a whole. Like,
yeah,
there's a deep distrust of journalists, and there's a deep love for journalism.
yeah.
It's this weird disconnect. I think a lot of it can be summarized in there's this book called God, what is it called? I think it's called The Journalist and the Murderer. It's written by Janet Malcolm. The first line of this book is that, like, every journalist who knows what they're doing, who isn't too like is smart enough to know what they're doing, knows what they're doing is deeply unethical
Mhm.
or something like that. And what they're talking about is that there's a tradition in journalism to betray the subject, to lie to them in the hopes of getting a story and play to their ego and to their sense of self to make it seem like you're going to write one article and you stab them in the back at the end when you press publish and you write the totally different article.
Yeah.
This is what actually everyone hates about journalists. And it's happened to me before. So I did a story like way back in the day. I got interviewed about something that was like data with YouTube. I made a few comments about data and YouTube. And somehow by the time the article got published, it's about me endorsing their opinion that PewDiePie is an anti-Semite. And I'm like, I reach out to this person. I said, I never said that. Like, what do you talk? How did you even twist my words to say that? And I felt so disgusted and betrayed to have like, I'm like this mouthpiece for an ideology or like a thought that I do not actually agree with. So and when journalists do this, they think, well, I'm never going to interview this person again, so it's okay. So it's almost like the ends justify the means. I get the story. But the ends don't justify the means because you've now undermined the entire field's credibility with that person. And when that happens enough times, you end up sitting across from Lex Friedman and it's like, well, I don't know if they're going to represent me fairly because the base assumption is that regardless of what the journalist says, they could betray you and they might betray you at the end of the day and be saying you're great while they're secretly writing like a hit piece about like, how much, you're a bad force for the world. Whereas there's an alternate universe where if the journalist was somewhat upfront about their approach, or at least didn't mislead and didn't say like, I love you, I think you're great, um, you would end up with less access but you would end up with more trusted journalism, which I think in the long run would be better.
I think you get more access.
I think in the long term, yeah, but all of these, like everything we're talking about is long term games versus short term games.
Yeah.
In the short term, you get more access if you suck up to the person, if you say this, say this, say this, and you stab them in the back later. Long term, you build a long term reputation, people trust you, it actually matters more. But
And it's nice when that reputation is your own individual. So like you have a YouTube channel, you're one individual. So people trust that because you have a huge disincentive to screw people over.
true.
I feel like if you're in the New York Times, if you screw somebody over, the New York Times gets the hit, not you individually. So you can like uh you're safer, but like the reason I don't screw people over is I know that I mean, well, there's my own ethics and integrity, but
Sure. But
also there's a
yeah,
strong
yeah, yeah,
disincentive to
yeah.
like because you're now that person is gonna go public with me screwing them over, completely lying about everything, how I presented the person, for example. And that's just gonna, that's gonna percolate throughout the populace, and they're gonna be like, Lex is the person that's a lying lying sack of shit, and so there's a huge disincentive to do that.
I
Yeah,
yeah,
journalists don't have that
that is what's interesting about, yeah, the move towards
independent. Yeah.
independent journalism. Um, I think we'll probably end up at a space where it's so interesting. Mainstream journalism has so much work to do to repair the trust with the average individual. Um, and it's going to take a lot of like self-reflection. I've talked to a few mainstream journalists about this, and a lot of them will admit it behind closed doors, but like there's this general sense that, oh, the public's not being fair to us. Like they're defensive, I guess, in a way.
Hmm.
And I understand why, because sometimes it's just a few bad apples that ruin it for everybody. But without the acknowledgement of the deep distrust that they have with a good portion of our society, there's no way to rebuild that. Just like when there's no acknowledgement of the corruption of the 2008 financial crash, there's no way to rebuild that. Even if most bankers, most traders are not unethical or duplicitous, or they're totally normal people with who maybe aren't deserving of the bad reputation, but you have to acknowledge the damage that's been done by bad actors before you can like heal that system.
Well, what do you think about Elon just opening the door to a journalist to see all the emails that were sent, the quote unquote Twitter files?
Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, I saw a lot of I'm like in this weird thing where I follow a lot of independent people and I follow a lot of mainstream journalists, and there's very polar opposite takes on that.
People really quickly politicize it, but to me, the
Yes.
thing that was fascinating is just the transparency that I've never see from one of the really frustrating things to me, because a lot of this podcast has been about interviewing tech people, CEOs, and so on, and they're just so guarded with everything. It's hard to get to, and so it's nice to get. Um, hopefully, this is a signal. Look, you can be transparent. Like this is a signal to increase transparency,
Hopefully so. I don't yeah, it's been tribalized so quickly. It's like I've lost a lot of faith in that.
right?
And unfortunately, it's been this like bludgeon match of like, you know, if you're on the right, you think it's uncovering the greatest story ever about Hunter
Yeah,
Biden. If you're on the left, you think they were just silencing revenge porn pics of Hunter Biden. So therefore it was justified. And by the way, Trump also sent messages to Twitter. So doesn't that mean that like we should be criticizing It just like it
right.
this is goes back to why I don't touch politics, is because I think
Yeah.
as many problems as I have, I think when you become like a journalist that not even a political journalist, when you become a journalist in politics, you have like twice the problem. So I'm happy to be well outside of that kind of sphere.
But it's an interesting.
It is interesting.
It Twitter, forget Twitter files, but Twitter itself is really, really interesting from the virality of information transfer
Yeah.
and from a journalistic perspective. It's like how information travels, how it becomes distributed.
What
It's
do you,
interesting.
what do you think about Twitter? I'm always conflicted on Twitter because I almost hate how much I enjoy using it,
Hmm.
because I'm like, this is like this mindless bird app is consuming my time.
Hmm.
It's this incredible networking tool. But what's weird is when I think about my own presence on Twitter, they've almost made it too easy to like say something that you've half thought. Like the friction to send a tweet is so much less than like if I'm going to make a YouTube video, there's several points at which I'm like, well, what's the other side? What's this? What's that? There's no friction there. And so one thing I've noticed is everyone I follow on Twitter, a lot of them, after reading all their tweets, I think nothing more of them, nothing less of them. But there's a lot of them that I think less of.
Hmm.
And I don't think I've ever had an experience where I've read someone tweets and I think more of them in a way. And I'm like, what does that say that
Yeah, what is that? Like, there's so many people I admire that the worst of them is represented in
yes.
Twitter.
Yes.
Like, there's a lot of people
There's a million
they
examples.
become like snarky and sometimes mocking and derisive and
Correct.
negative and like emotional messes. Um, I don't know. Yeah, what is that? Maybe maybe we shouldn't criticize it and accept that as like a beautiful raw aspect of that human being, but not encompassing, not representing the full
But it
entirety of that
does
human being.
reflect like it's impossible to not reflect it to some extent, or you'd have to counter that bias really carefully because that is them. It is a thought they had. It's just probably something that should have been an unexpressed thought, perhaps. Um, so
Yeah.
yeah, I kind of wonder like I'm like, should I be on Twitter? But the problem is it's such a great place where so much of the news happens on Twitter, so much of the journalism breaks on Twitter. Even people in the New York Times, they'll tweet their scoop and
Yeah.
they'll put that out on Twitter first. So it's this really weird thing where I'd love to be off it and it's like too useful for my job, but I kind of hate it.
No, no, you need to. Well, it depends, but from my perspective, you should be on it.
Oh, I
Certainly,
definitely am. Yeah,
so like a CoffeeZilla should definitely be on
of
Twitter,
course.
but have developed the calluses and the strength to not give in to the sort
Yeah.
of the lesser aspects, like that, because you're like you're silly, you're funny, you could be cutting with your humor. I wouldn't give into the like the darker aspects of that, like low effort negativity. If you're the way you are in your videos, I would say if you're ever negative or making fun of stuff, I think that's high effort. So I would still put a lot of effort into it, like calmly thinking
Sure.
through that, because and also not giving into the dopamine desire to to say something that's going to get a lot of likes. I have that all the time. You use Twitter enough, you realize certain messages that are going to get more likes than others, and
And are usually the ones that are more extreme
yeah,
and like emotional, like Lex is an idiot or like Lex is the greatest human
yeah,
being ever.
yeah.
It's much better than, oh, wow, what a polite, nuanced conversation. I can tell you right now which of those three tweets it isn't going to perform well.
Yeah, yeah. So I think extremes are okay if you believe it. Like I will sometimes say positive things. I said that the Twitter files release was historic. Of course, this before I realized. I mean, I the reason I said it is not is because the transparency. It's so refreshing
Mhm.
to see some any level of transparency. And then, of course, those kinds of comments, the way Twitter does, is every side will interpret it in the worst possible way for them, and they will run with it. Or some side, when it's political, yeah, one side will interpret, yes, I agree with
You're right. It's
Lex.
historic.
It's
They might
historic.
not have even read the article. They
Yeah.
just like, they literally, or the tweet thread, and they're just like, it is historic because
Historic
it's
because Hunter Biden was finally the collusion or whatever
exposed.
it
Yeah, yeah,
is,
yeah.
and then the other side is like, no, it's a nothing burger. But yeah, that aspect of nuance and that it's frozen in time. Even with editing, there's
So tough.
it's tricky. But if you maintain a cool head through all of that and hold to your ethics and your ideas and use it to spread the ideas, which you do extremely well on YouTube. I think it could be a really powerful platform. There's no other platform that allows for the viral spread of ideas,
It's unique.
good
It's
ideas,
unique.
than um, than this. And this is where, like, especially with Twitter Spaces. I mean, where else would I see? I think twice impromptu conversations with
Was
CoffeeZilla and SBF. Like,
never. Yeah, nowhere else. Because he wasn't gonna come on my show. He wasn't gonna come on some big prepared thing. It's like, "Hey, YOLO, let's go on a Twitter Space," and I, like, pop up. And you know what's funny? And this I hope this release is late enough or, well, SPF probably won't see this.
yeah,
Although I'm sure he's a
I
friend.
and unfortunately, unfortunately, he will.
Oh,
But
okay.
yes,
Well,
uh,
hopefully I'll have time to enact my little plan,
okay.
but, I'm hoping if he goes on any future spaces, I can, like, haunt him from
Mhm.
interview to interview, where just, like, I keep showing up and he's like, "Ah, I hate this guy."
But I think he's already kind of probably um has like PTSD of like in the shadows lurks a CoffeeZilla.
That would just it's just like, that really amuses me.
I mean, there's I think he honestly would enjoy talking to you. There's a aspect of Twitter Spaces that's a little uncertain of like, what are we doing here? Because
Right.
there's an urgency because other voices might want to butt in.
Exactly, exactly.
If it's an intimate one on one where you can like breathe, like hold on a second,
Yeah.
I think it's much easier. So in that sense, Twitter Space is a little bit negative. That there's too many voices. If if especially if it's a very controversial kind of thing. So
Yep.
it's tricky. But at the same time, the friction, it's so easy to just jump in.
Yep.
Uh,
Right.
so I could just I mean, I mean, you just imagine like a Twitter space with like Zelensky and Putin. Like, how else are
Oh
these
my
two going
gosh.
to
Yeah,
talk,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like, can't you imagine?
If you try to set it up on Zoom, like it's
Right.
never
It's
happening.
never
Too
happening.
many delegates. Like
Just
the only
imagine
way
like
it happens
Putin like sitting there
is just
like
Zelensky's live.
just live, right? Just jumping in.
It's hilarious.
Давай по-русски поговорим. Okay. Actually, just on a small tangent. So, how do you have a productive day? Do you have any insights on how to manage your time optimally?
Yeah, I mean, I've gone the gamut of from obsessive time tracking in 15-minute buckets
Mhm.
to kind of like the other extreme where it's more kind of like large scale, some deep work here, 2-hour bucket, account for an hour of lunch and some other thing. But now I just roughly, because I manage a team and there's some things that kind of come up. It's only a team of 2. It's not like big, but I just have things that are not necessarily controllable by me. I like have to take some meetings or whatever. It's not as easy to plan out my day ahead of time. So I do a lot of retrospective time management where I look at my day, and that's what I mostly do now. Um, and I account, did I spend this day productively? What could I do better? And then try to implement it in the future. So a lot of this I realized is very personal for me. I do very well in long streaks of working. And if I can't do a lot of work in 15 minutes, I can't do a lot of work in even an hour. But if you give me like 3 hours or 5 hours or 6 hours of uninterrupted work, that's like that's where I get most of my stuff done.
So, from the, it'd be fun to explore those. When you did 15-minute buckets, so you have a day in front of you,
Yeah.
and you have like a Google sheet or a spreadsheet or
Yeah.
something, and
Yeah, I did an Excel.
Excel. Uh, and you're Do you have a plan for the day, or do you go like when you did it, uh, or you just literally sort of focus on a particular task, and then you're tracking as you're doing that task of
That
every 15 minutes?
Yeah, I would kind of do it live. I'm not so one of the reasons I'm so obsessive about it is because I'm not organized by nature.
Mhm.
And I lost like in college, I learned how much lack of organization can just hurt you in terms of output. And so I realized like I just had to build systems that would enable me to become more organized. So uh really, I think that doing that really taught me a lot about time in the same way that tracking calories can teach you about food.
Yes.
Like, just learning accounting for these things will give you skills that eventually you might not need to track on such a granular level because you've kind of, like, figured out. So that's kind of how I feel about it. I think everyone should, if you care about productivity and stuff, should do a little bit of it. I don't think it's sustainable in the long term. It just takes so much effort and time to, like, and I think the marginal effect of it in the long term is kind of minimal once you learn these basic skills. But yeah, I was basically tracking like live what I did. And what I saw is that a lot of my real work would be done in small sections of the day. And then it'd be like a lot of just nothing, like a lot of small things where I'm busy, but little is being achieved. And so I think that's a really interesting insight. I've never figured out how to unbusy myself and focus on the like core essentials. I'm still getting to that. But it is interesting realizing most of your day is like a lot of nothing. And then like some real deep work where most of your value comes from is like
Mm.
20% of your day.
Yeah, I try to start every day with that. So the hardest task of the day, and you focus for long periods of time. And I also have the segment of 2 hours where it's a set of tasks that I do every single day. Well, the idea is you do that for like your whole life. It's like long-term investment of Anki, and it's just like learning and um, reminding yourself of facts you know that they're useful in your everyday life. And then for me, also music. I'll play a little bit of music.
I
It's
play the
just
piano.
piano. And so like keeping that regular thing as part of
Sure.
your life.
And one thing that I've really taken from this is because I've read all the like, I had a self improvement phase in my early 20s. Um, and one thing you learn is that everyone wants to give you a broad general solution, but really the real trick of figuring out like optimizing is figuring out the things that work for you specifically. So like
Yeah.
one interesting thing you said is like, "Oh, I like to do my hard work at the beginning of the day." Um, I know a lot of people recommend this. I've tried so many times, and I just do better work late at night. And so usually my streak of work is like from like after dinner, 7:30 to like 2 a.m. That's my prime time. And so like a lot of my videos, which you'll see, which is like lit from this studio, which appears to be daytime, it's like shot at 3 a.m.,
Mhm.
just like in a caffeine fueled rush. Um, but that's kind of how it works for me. And then also like with the social outlets and stuff like that, which it's easy, and I know I feel like we think similarly on this,
Mhm.
so it's easy to discount these things as less relevant because they don't have quantitative metrics associated with them. But in terms of longevity and, like, I think to be able to do creative work, there's an amount of recharge and, like, re-inputting stuff that is frequently discounted by people like us who are, like, obsessed with, quantitative metrics. And so I really found that some of my best work gets done after I take, like, a break, or I'll go play, like, live sets, of music. And, I mean, like, that's, like, for me, really recharging, but nowhere on a spreadsheet is that gonna show up as productive or, like, meaningful. But for me, for whatever reason, it recharges me in a way that, like, I need to pay attention to.
Yeah, for sure. I usually have a spreadsheet of 15-minute increments when I'm socially interacting with people,
Ah,
and I evaluate how.
I'm getting roasted right now.
No, I'm not. It's actually, I probably roasting myself, but I do find that when I do have social interactions, I like to do it with people that are in outside of that exceptionally busy themselves, because then you understand the value of time. And when you understand the value of time, your interaction becomes more intimate and intense. Like the cliche of work hard, party hard, or whatever the cliche is. I
Play
don't
hard.
play hard. Damn it, whatever the
You need more
English is
social
my second
interaction.
language.
No, I'm just kidding.
um, I mean that cliche. There's a truth to that, but the intensity of the social interaction, even like it's not even the intensity. Like it's not even the party hard. It's like even if you're going hiking and relaxing and taking in nature. So it's very relaxed, but you understand the value of that. When you put a huge amount of value on those moments spent in nature, that recharges me much more. So you have to surround yourself with people that think of life that way, that think about the value of every single moment. That's one of the things you do when you break it up in 15-minute increments is you realize how much time there's in the day, how much
Yeah.
awesomeness there's in the day to experience, to get done, and so on, and then so you can feel that when you're with somebody. Um, and then for me personally, like when I interact with people, I really like to be fully present for the interaction. Like,
I can tell this is for anyone who I've been the audience forever, so I haven't been on this side of the table before. You're very intense. You look right in the eye. You're
well,
like
I don't know about right in the eye. Eye contact is an issue, but yes,
Lex
I'm
has a
there.
soulful gaze, guys, just in case you were wondering.
Yeah.
It's very soulful.
All
It's
right.
very
All right.
comforting. It's like a
All right.
warm hug.
Back to serious talk. Okay. You've studied a lot of people who lie, who defraud, cheat and scam on a basic human level. How do you have trouble trusting human beings in your own life? How what's your relationship with trust of other humans?
It's a great question. So, funny enough, before I did this, I was like an incorrigible optimist. I everything, the sun shined every which place. I always saw like everybody is fundamentally good. Nobody was bad. It just was like sort of wrong place, wrong time, bad incentives. That view has darkened significantly. But I just try to remember my sample set, and just like I'm just sampling sort of the worst. And I try not to let it bleed into my day to day life. And I think it's probably because I was such an optimist early on that I've been able to kind
Yeah.
of retain some of it. I call it enlightened optimism, like choosing to be optimistic in the face of a realistic sense of the problems in the world, and with a realistic sense of like the scale and the challenge ahead. Um, I I actually think it's much braver to be an optimist when you're aware of what's going on in the world than to be a cynic. I think being a complete cynic is maybe, I'm not saying it's wrong, but I'm saying it's maybe the easier way, just mentally, to cope with so much negativity. It's like just saying, well, it's all bad, it's all doomed to fail, it's all going to go bust is easier.
Yeah, that leap into a believing that it's a good world is it's a little baby act of courage. Or at least I think so. I don't think it's naive.
No, it can be. Some people are naive that are optimistic, but oftentimes, just because someone's optimistic does not mean they're naive. They could be full well aware of how troubling the world is.
And I also believe some of the people you study, I'm a big believer that all of us are capable of good and evil. Um, so in some sense, the people you study are just the successful ones, the ones who chose sort of the dark path and were successful at it. And I think all of us can choose the dark path in life. It's that's like that's the responsibility we all carry is we get to choose that at every moment, and it's like a big responsibility. And it's a chance to really have integrity. It is a chance to stand for something good in this world. And all of us have that because I think all of us are capable of evil. All of us could be good Germans. All of us could, in atrocities, be part of the atrocities.
Yeah, I think I really have, especially in recent years, tried to somewhat depersonalize my work and see it almost like as like a, I don't know, like a force of nature that I'm fighting more than like individuals. Because of this exact thing, I think like sort of therefore, but the grace of God, there go I is kind of a really profound way to understand yourself rather than as just like fundamentally good and like full of integrity. Acknowledging that so much of that is a product of your environment and your family and your upbringing. And so much of the people who don't have that is a product of their environment. It doesn't absolve them, but it gives you more perspective to like to sort of deal fairly, if that makes sense, and not approach it from a place of anger or a place of outrage. There is a sense of like sadness for the victims. There's a sense of outrage for the victims, but approach the individual who's done the thing from that place of understanding of this isn't just this person. There's like a whole broader thing going on here.
Do you have advice for young people of how to live this life? How to have a career they can be proud of? So, high school students, college students, or maybe a life they can be proud of.
It's a great. Well, let me think about this for a second. I think don't be afraid to go against the grain and sort of challenge the expectations on you. Um, like you sort of have to do this weird thing where you acknowledge how difficult it will be to achieve something great while also having the courage to go for it anyways. And understanding that other people don't have it figured out, I think is a big theme of my work, which is that everyone wants like the guru to show them the way, to show them the secrets. So much of life and achieving anything is learning to figure it out yourself and like the meta skill of being an autodidactic where you can, I don't know if I said that word right. You self teach. You learn the meta skill of like learning to learn.
Mhm.
I think that's such an underrated aspect of education. People leave education, they go, when am I going to use 2 plus 2? When am I going to learn, use calculus? But so much of it is learning this higher level abstract thinking that can apply to anything. And getting that early on is incredibly powerful. So yeah, I would say like a lot of it is I guess to some extent, like you kind of have to do that Steve Jobs thing where you realize that nobody else in the world is smarter than you. And that both means that, like, they can't show you the perfect way, but it also means you could do great things and kind of chart your own path. I don't know. That's so cheesy. This is why I hate
No.
giving advice because I feel like it's cheesy. I mean, and I don't think it is. Like, I
You're,
think my journey is so full of luck and like specific experience. I wonder how generalizable it is. But if I've learned anything, and if I could talk specifically to myself, I guess that's what I would say.
I mean, you've taken a very difficult path, and I think part of taking that path, like of a great journalist, frankly, is like I can be that person. Like, just believing in yourself that you can take that. Because like, if you see a problem in the world, you could be the solution to that problem. Like, you can solve that problem.
Yeah.
I think that's like, it's really important to believe that. It depends. Maybe you're lucky to have the belief inside yourself. Um, Maybe the thing that you're saying is like, don't look to others for that strength.
A
Uh,
and also, like, be really comfortable failing. I think, one of the best things that, like, you would never know about me, just looking at my background, that helped me was playing music live. I had incredible amounts of stage fright
yeah.
growing up, mostly because I was terrible at piano. I was, like, sucked. And I taught myself how to play, and I joined jazz band in, like, high school, did it through college. I remember all my recitals, I messed up every single solo I ever did. I never, like, actually nailed it.
Mm.
And every time I'd go up there, I'd, like, have so much dread around this. And, it was easier to get up there because there were sort of some people up there, but eventually, I started, like, playing live too, and I sucked at that. And I've just gone through the trenches of, like, just, like, being publicly sort of, in my mind, humiliated,
Mhm.
like, that prepared me so much for what I do now of trying to basically being fearless of failure in the face of, like, a wide audience. I don't have that anymore because kind of I've experienced so many iterations of it at a smaller scale of just, like, abject public humiliation to where it's, like, not something that bothers me. I have no stage fright. That doesn't bother me anymore. But you'd think like, "Oh, maybe he just was always good at this." I was terrible at it. I had a complete phobia about public anything. So, it was that rapid iteration of just failure, and eventually I just, like, came to the conclusion of, like, I wanna love it. I wanna, like, love, like, getting up on a stage and bombing. If you can learn to, like, love that and be fearless there, there's almost nothing you can't do.
Yeah, that's brilliant advice. I'm with you. It's still terrifying to me, like live performance. But yeah, that's exactly the feeling is loving the fact that you tried. And somehow failure is like a deeper celebration of the fact that you tried. Because success is easy, but like
Success, yes.
failure is like
Yeah.
bombing. I mean, music, yeah, on small scale, on the smallest and the largest of stages. I'm not gonna say who, but there's a huge band that wanted me get on stage, and it probably will happen, but like,
Wow.
but I turned it down because I was like, no,
Terrified.
because I'm gonna suck for sure. So
Yeah.
the question is,
Do you do
do
it?
I want to suck in front of a very large live audience?
Yeah.
And and then I turned it down because like, no, 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 no,
Sure.
no, no. But now I realize, yes,
Embrace it.
it's gonna be good. It's gonna be good for you. It's gonna crush your ego to the degree it's remaining,
Yeah.
and it's just good for you. It's good not to take yourself seriously and do those kinds of things.
True.
But honestly, I feel that way in an audience, like in an open mic. It hurts. That's why I really admire comedians and I go to open mics all the time with comedians and musicians, and I just see them bomb and or play in front of like just a few folks, and they're putting their heart out, and especially the ones that kind of suck but are going all out anyway.
I think open mics are the best place to learn though, because it's the lowest stakes you can get
Yeah.
while still being public. If you're gonna face like fears around this, because we're talking very specifically like public speaking or any kind of like, being in front of a camera, if you're gonna face your fear, you have to do it. And the easiest way to do it is to lower the stakes. You're not gonna start being Lex Friedman on stage with a huge band. You don't wanna be. Like it's like in that way, it is so impossible. Um, the more you lower the stakes and just, like, open it up to, like, 2 strangers, 5 strangers, like, the most dive bar open mic you can go to and, like, start performing, that's that's really what I did is, I love open mics now because it's, like, low stakes on the one hand, but you really get the feeling of, like,
Mhm.
going for it.
And get better and better and better at
Yep.
that. Yeah, for sure. And then you'll get the strength to take a bigger and bigger and bigger risks. Listen, Coffee, I'm a huge fan of yours, not just for who you are, but for what you stand for. People like you are rare and they're a huge inspiration. I'm inspired by your fearlessness, that that you're taking on some of the most powerful and richest people in this world, and doing so with respect, I think, with good faith, but also with a boldness and fearlessness. Listen, man, I'm a huge fan. Keep doing what you're doing as long as you got the strength for it, because I think you inspire all of us. You're doing important work, brother.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to this conversation with CoffeeZilla. To support this podcast, please check out our sponsors in the description. And now, let me leave you with some words from Walter Lippmann. There can be no higher law in journalism than to tell the truth and to shame the devil. Thank you for listening, and hope to see you next time.